There it goes. We're on. We're on.
Oh, good.
I'm very happy to have, again, by popular demand, all over Cambridge and the internet, my friend Richard Albert, who has just written a song called Uncivil War. You can tell us, if you like, how you were moved to begin to write it.
Well, that's an interesting story. It was actually I'm in a songwriting group, or actually a couple of songwriting groups, and one day, this was probably about 6, 7 months ago, we decided to give each other topics to write about, and the topic I got turned out to be Civil War, in which I could have made different things out of that. The first thing that occurred to me was the Civil War, the American Civil War, but I also thought about, relationship civil wars, or all the different civil wars going on around the planet at any given time. But I think what cinched it was I started thinking back and realized that the American Civil War was almost exactly 150 years ago. In fact, in April 12th is the official outbreak of the firing on Fort Sumter, and generally considered the start of the Civil War 150 years ago, and it's still very much with us.
With us in what sense?
Well, the Civil War, we still think of North and South, and that division still seems to be a political divide in the country. Race relations that certainly every black person and every white person is aware of the origin of slavery and the effects that's played on race relations in America.
So maybe you'll sing us. And so you got this topic, and then you wanted, and what moved you to write about this Civil War?
Well, I think, I was thinking it was 150 years ago, and it still seemed like it was like very much with us. And I started thinking about all the images that that came to me about what the Civil War means, and they seem very powerful. So I kind of organized them.
What images came to you?
Well, the images of mostly about the slaughter of it all. I was thinking about how if you go through New England towns, you go through almost any small town in New England that's been around for a few hundred years, you will see, usually right in the center of the town, a Civil War monument. Right here in Cambridge, there's the Memorial Hall, and that's to commemorate Civil War. And then the reason they're there is because these towns just lost tremendous amount of their youth. It was a devastating, heart-wrenching, impact on the communities here. So that was one of the images. Just and then you see these old cannons with with the in the town squares with the cannonballs, things like that, and also the photographs, that you can. It was really one of the first, really the first war that was extensively photographed. So you can see all the destruction that happened, and some of it's pretty heart-wrenching.
And we didn't know what we were fighting for in the North, right? Supposedly, that doesn't seem to be a very powerful force. We're fighting for the Union, right?
Well, yes. I mean, the North wanted to couch it as fighting for the Union.
Yes, which
it was
is
kind of in a way that was the spin of the day.
Yes.
They figured, well, it was more sellable to say, well, we'll fight for the Union of the country than to free the slaves.
Well, they weren't doing fighting for that.
Yeah, but it was really about the rules of slavery that was what was driving the differences.
And interesting that 4 states who owned slaves fought for the Union. I believe, yes?
Right. Or at least we're neutral.
Yes, or at least we're OIC. And didn't...
Yeah. I don't pose to be
an
expert, but I know that Kentucky and Missouri Maryland. Maryland, I think, was a Union state, but the other, I think Kentucky and Missouri were technically neutral.
Right. Well, with that as an introduction, and you decided to call it Uncivil War.
The Uncivil War. Well, because of the sheer horror of and destruction of the battles in all the wars we fought, including from Revolutionary War to right up to today. The death toll is still not equal that of the Civil War.
I mean, all the other wars that
every other war combined.
Combined, even World War II, right?
Everything combined.
Right.
Does not equal just the death toll in the Civil War, and there was not the medical. Often it was injuries that would probably be not life-threatening today. They just didn't have medicines to take care of the people then. So it was, it was a tremendous slaughter on both sides, and I didn't wasn't so much wanting to make a political statement that slavery was evil, or which I believe, but it was more wanted to focus on the human toll. Well,
with that as an introduction, okay. We are now going to hear. I'm going to get off set.
Okay. Some room. And I'm gonna need a little room for my guitar, so I'm gonna just back out here. I think I'm still on the monitor. Oops, and I lost my pick. So let me duck down for a second. Okay. A song called "The Uncivil War." And put on the capo.
"150 years ago, they stood out in the trenches in fields of fallen snow. City boys and plowboys far away from home, praying just to make it through the day. That was long before my father's time, but he must have met some of those men who fought behind those lines. They were proud old men with long white hair and canes, survivors of the war between the states. Well, the blue side thought the new states should be free. The gray ones held these lands were meant for slavery, and they took a stand to live or die in Dixieland, in Dixie. Look away from the fighting, away from the death, away from those forlorn years spent in the wilderness. Look away from the amputees, the dried blood and the gore, the gangrene and camp fever of those boys who went through war. The American Uncivil War. Steam engines, telegraph lines, bottles of whiskey spiked with turpentine, cans of goober peas must have tasted fine to a boy who's hungry. Just might be his last meal. Well, Abe Lincoln was the president. Behind closed doors, the insiders called him incompetent, but he understood his mission and the sacrifice that meant. He was a common man with misfortunes of his own. Well, he ended slavery by proclamation, that joyous day of emancipation. But not too much changed Jim Crow segregation down in Dixie. Look away from the fighting, away from the death, away from those forlorn years spent in the wilderness. Look away from the amputees, the dried blood and the gore, the gangrene and camp fever of those boys who went through war. The American Uncivil War. Some deserted to the woods when the cannons fired. Some held bayonets, stood their ground as required. Some charged fearless up the hills, then expired with a rebel yell. He's dying for the cause. Now I'm staring at a photo on a page. The first war captured by camera rings down from a distant age. I see fields bombed to hell, rows of men in shallow graves, and I wonder how the home folks took the news. Yeah, I'm saying that old times here are not forgotten. Those Irish lads drafted from the slums of Manhattan, rebel Georgia boys yanked from the fields of cotton down in Dixie. Look away from the fighting, away from the death, away from those forlorn years spent in the wilderness. Look away from the amputees, the dried blood and the gore, the gangrene and camp fever of those boys who went through war. The American Uncivil War.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move over a little.
So what did
That's a heavy song.
writing this? Because we don't often think about it, at least we in the North. You've helped me think about it. Is what did writing this song and singing this song do for you?
Well, it put me in touch with the intensity, and the horror of this war, and like most wars, when people first go off, there's a lot of hoopla at the beginning, and it's a great crusade and the cause and honor. I mean, I read some of the correspondence that were going on at Fort Sumter recently.
Yes.
And they were saying, if one general saying to the other, well, I have the pleasure to inform you that we will commence firing on your position. However, you have we will, if you surrender, allow you the opportunity to salute your flag. And I'm saying, this is like nuts.